Hello YouTube, it is August 15th, 2011, and I'm giving you a quick update what's going on over here. I've just received today a sample of a new glow powder from a shop on eBay. It's supposed to be UV reactive, which the previous ones weren't very reactive. They also had quite coarse particles. Now, I did an experiment with the little silver powder you can see on the shelf there, coating the inside of the moulds with it, as I saw in a guide on YouTube, and it's actually got very nicely with the rubber, and it doesn't flex. It does rub off very, very slightly. You can even see the grey tint there. It's very, very slight, and I'm very happy with how it's come out so far. But I wanted to try and find a glow powder that was a lot finer, that I could brush into the mould and just stick to the surface in a similar way. And I've just put in some test casts here. What we have here, these two here, the inside the moulds were dusted with the glow powder, and this one here's got no, it's just plain urethane rubber you cast in there. This one's got the urethane rubber with some of the glow powder mixed into it as well. See how that goes. This one here is the one with the glow powder mixed in the rubber, but nothing dusted in the mould. And this one here's got the glow powder in the rubber with a little bit of green pigment, and there's obviously not very much there, miscalculated, but it's only a test run to get an idea. I've been running a lot of tests recently to try and improve the casts I do make, and you see the first run of tests was not so successful. That was trying to get the urethane rubber to bond to a fleece, just a bit of chest fleece from IKEA, so it's not a blanket. You see it's soaked right the way through, it's mostly plastic there, and what I was hoping to get, because the way I've been making like the paw pads and stuff is using this stuff, because it's obviously got a lot of holes in it, and rubber soaks all the way through, so it bonds to it, so it made it pretty easy to sew on. But I've been having a lot of people saying, like, I don't want to sew it, I really just want to glue it on. Plus there's the issue, every time I have to sell one of these, I have to say, the rubber is not originally intended for costuming purposes, so the manufacturer recommends you put a fabric barrier between this and your skin, even though I've touched it and held it so many times over the last 3 years. It doesn't seem to have done me any harm. But I have to give that warning, which is a bit off-putting to people. So the idea was, okay, try and back it on fabric, so it only came part way through, so you wouldn't need a fabric barrier, and it would give you the option of, because fleece is obviously quite spongy, it takes glue amazingly, it's perfect stuff to use. So I've been running time tests, seeing how far, ignore the cables, seeing at what point it's best to put it in the rubber to get the right effects. I mean, you had to say 80-minute test here, 80 minutes after mixing, it barely stuck. You see that I pulled that away, there's not even a trace left on the fleece where it pulled away, just speckled surface. 60 minutes, there's a little bit of fleece bonding there. Fleece comes away a little bit. Well, there's a little bit of fleece left in the rubber, that is. It just pulls away. No real bonding at all. 45 minutes. It bonds quite nicely, but you still can pull it away. 30 minutes though, you can see it's actually darkened the fleece a little bit. It did bond right the way through, but without coming all the way through. I actually managed to narrow it down. 40 minutes seems to be the same one, because I did a second test. The 30 minutes, it merged through right at the edges. 30 minutes is a bit too much. 40 minutes, though, seems to be the magic number, because it's bonded right in there. Can't get it away. It's bonded, but it hasn't come all the way through, so you could still glue that, you could still sew it. That's the ideal one to go for. So I'm doing a second test with these as well, to see if I can get a glowing effect, because previously, it's only recently I've started using this rubber, which is naturally translucent. It's got a sort of brown tint, but it takes pigment okay. I'm hoping it will affect. Unfortunately, the effects of the powder are a lot less than I had been advised by the seller. If I turn on the UV lamp, so I can't see anything, can you? I mean, I've got a huge UV lamp inside, and it had a little bit of an effect, but not an awful lot. It really glows in the dark a lot better than it does reactive UV, which is surprising, because I thought particle size was related to how well it responded to UV and to I was told bigger the particles with the other glow powder, the bigger the particles, the longer lasting you'll get a glow in the dark effect. the smaller the crystals get, the less response you get. But these are tiny, I think they said 30 micron, and those are 200 mesh, which is about, it's not quite 10 times as much, but it's a lot more than the new powder, so I'm really surprised that it's reacting a lot more like that. But, you know, we'll still find out how it goes, and if it doesn't, I'll talk to him and say if you got anything better, you know. Because, you know, you see these images of the safety powders to teach you when you should wash your hands, how to wash them properly in hygienic environments, and that uses an ultraviolet reactive powder, and that comes up really brightly. So I'm really surprised that this hasn't had that effect yet. But we'll see. Also into the hackspace today. Dropped in. We did a run to a local college and collected some old equipment there. Unfortunately, we weren't allowed to take as much as had previously been suggested, but that seems to be because there was a rather officious manager type there standing over watching us, and basically it was up until he called chicken. That's my opinion of it. He was standing there sort of looking at us, was like, oh, can we take this, and was coming, I was like, no, you don't want to take that, you don't want to take that. No, that's going to the scrap man. And was actually would rather see it scrapped, allegedly for liability reasons, than give it away to, essentially a charitable organisation. But basically, yeah, I think he's one of those people who just is so used to doing things in routine, they can't get their red handed. Just like seeing someone take something away that wasn't being, you know, officially disposed of and destroyed, was just making him freak out. Unfortunately, the engineer there was so nice and was so friendly, was just trying to take this, trying to sneak the smaller items he could onto us. But it was a damn shame because there was some beautiful equipment there, beautiful mechanical equipment. But while I was in the space, also picked up a few things. Picked up these driver boards, which I had someone put aside for me. They came in from a place that does those large displays that you get in the Piccadilly Circus and so on, where you have the large matrix light bulb setups. And these have all got opto-isolators, and these little TRIACs, which will switch, I think it says 600 volts up 8 amps. So at mains voltage you're looking at about 2 kilowatts per TRIAC here. And they've got the opto-isolators here, and there's 4 boards, each with an 8x8 matrix, so yeah, I'm laughing if I want to do any home automation now. I should be, unless I've misread something on the data sheets. I've got 4 of those boards. I'm happy with that. These were in the 2-week disposal bin, because the way they run it at the Hackspaces, there's 3 bins for miscellaneous stuff people donate. If it's not public use, it goes in the 3-week bin, next week goes in the 2-week bin, next week goes in the 1-week bin, and then it goes in the big bin, and just goes, obviously, and then someone finds it in the skip and brings it back in as a new item. But, yeah, there were some these little transistors. Well, I say little transistors, they're actually quite large. Someone's actually gutted one open here to looking at how it works. Found this data sheet with them, and they sound quite nice. It's what's less than 1 megahertz, 7 amps, 40 volts, probably radio gear, so it'll go nicely with the other radio gear I've got, even though I don't really experiment with radio just yet, but I'm sure I'll find a use for them, and I might even I'll see how they run. Maybe I could use them for some motor control, I'm not quite sure. They're certainly within the voltage range, and right, the amps are a bit low, but might be use it for something. We'll see. I'll have to think about that. Nice little, I think the Motorola ones, but that M on them. But the other items I picked up from the scrap bins were this little digital photo frame, which I'm not going to show working because the previous owner has left their photos on it, and so I want to check on the mailing list and make sure that they meant it to be in that bin and hasn't just fallen and been assumed and put away. And the other one, this little fella, who is a little 80s sidekick, because you look at this, it's actually an alarm clock with a robot head on it, and it talks, and I've plugged it in, and it does still work, but the way it moves, the way the animatronics move, it reminds me of the animatronics you'd see in movies in the 1980s. And if you listen to the audio that comes out of it, it really reminds you of them as well. He does blink a lot though, and the blinking is very annoying. I can't imagine how you could have this in a bedroom. I can't see any way of turning off the animations except by turning the radio on, and if you turn the radio on, then you're not going to sleep anyway, so anyway, press the fortune button. I can read the time for starters anyway.
I think it's time for bed. It's 12 o'clock a.m.
His blinking eyes are really noisy. But he also tells fortunes like a sort of electronic magic 8-ball.
Great. Ask me a yes or no question, then press my red snooze button down there.
He runs on a 30-second timer there. If you're in that 30 seconds, I've not let it time out yet, so I don't know what happens then. You press the snooze button, and he gives you a pat answer for whatever you've said to it, presumably.
Not sure. Better ask me again. Press the F2 button to begin again.
F2? But I presume he said fortune then, because it must have mumbled it.
Great. Ask me a yes or no question, then press my red snooze button down there.
Ask me a yes or no question. That's the first time he's asked that. And let's see if he actually gives a yes or no answer.
Let me think about this. Of course.
He does blink a hell of a lot. It actually begins to make me think there's something wrong with him. Because he does blink an exceptionally large amount. And this light here switches his lights between 3 modes. Obviously on, blinky, and off. It doesn't change the eyes though. But I was surprised this is a fucking alarm clock. I mean, it's completely useless. You couldn't sleep with this thing staring at you, and it turns its head, which is... I've got the computer over here, and I left it running to make sure it don't overheat or anything. And a number of times it just turns its head and stares at you, and then starts blinking rapidly. It's... Ugh. See, he does that just occasionally, at random. Or just starts blinking on, off, on, off, on, off. Which is just a bit... It's a bit unnerving. But I'm amazed how lifelike it is. I guess it's the use of... it must use some analog gear in there somewhere. And I'm thinking what I'm going to do is try and hook it up to some sort of control, and maybe... one of the things that fascinates me is running some sort of more of an instinctual interface to computers. So having this as a sort of output device might be quite nice. I guess we'll see, but the way it moves of its own accord does make it seem very lifelike, sort of haunted, which is a bit unnerving, to say the least, the very, very least. I think that's all. Also, yes, while we're clearing out, rummaging desperately in the last few minutes at the university, college to pick up the bits, did find... See, that's what he does. And now he's humming. I did find one of my old, my grandfather's switches that he designed. I think it's a P5, high current key switch. Okay. Now you have an alarm clock beside your bed. Who could sleep to wake up in the middle of the night and turn around and see it doing this for like 30 seconds, and then just stops? I almost hope these didn't sell well. It's a lovely bit of engineering, but my god, that freak you out. I can almost guarantee there are children out there who would see this, who had one of these in their childhood, and have nightmares of waking up and seeing this thing staring at them. I can't remember exactly, but I think at least one point it did say something all of its own accord. I mean, it's honestly useless as a... Okay, maybe you're not that useless. I apologise.